Today's episode contains mature themes and content. It may not be suitable for young listeners. Discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast, where we come together to make a difference in the lives of children in foster care and the families who care for them. Foster Friendly communities are part of a nationwide movement by America's Kids Belong that helps people from all walks of life take action and help kids and families thrive. You'll hear from former foster youth, foster and adoptive parents, social workers, faith and business leaders, and other experts on how to engage in meaningful ways. Our hosts Brian, Travis, and Courtney explore inspiring stories of everyday people making a difference in foster care where they live and work.
Hello and welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast. I'm your host, Brian, and I've got my Courtney. I'm forgetting to get adjectives now. So I've
That's
got.
Sometimes I don't want the adjective.
We're gonna stop doing that. Okay, I've got my brilliant co-host. How about that for Courtney with me today? Yes. And Courtney, we've got I think a very interesting guest today, and we're tackling something that I don't know that we've ever talked about this before in all the podcasts that we've done. But today we have Hollie Strand, and Hollie, welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah. So to our audience, here's where this is going to go. Hollie is a forensic examiner for the Pennington County Sheriff's Office, and so Pennington County is in the southwest corner of South Dakota, and she has been assigned to the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and she's been working in this field for 26 years. And has held the positions of a police officer, forensic interviewer, counselor with extensive history in providing therapy for individuals in the correctional system. So today's interview is going to be about those things, how kids who are in foster care are at risk for the things that Hollie oversees and tries to prevent. So Hollie, thank you for coming. And I'm really excited. Well, not excited is not the right word. I'm very interested in what we're going to hear from you today.
Yeah. Before we get into that hard, deep topic, Hollie, tell us just a little bit about yourself and your family and kind of your life today.
Sure. I married my best friend, and we have 5 kiddos. They are 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14.
Wow.
Yes. That I have any hair left is a miracle. 2 biological, 3 adopted from foster care. So just have that background. Incredibly busy, just running. But yeah, when you have 5 kids, I think that just explains everything right there, especially in that order.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I have a daughter who's in similar. The kids are younger, but they're all like 5 kids too, and they're all a year apart. So, and 3 adopted, 2 biological. So it's chaos.
It is. It is.
So I can't imagine what your life is like. Yes.
It's good to feel heard.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. You are not bored. That's for sure.
No.
Well, yeah. So let's stay there a little bit longer. That's not a common thing that people say, hey, let's adopt a few kids, all close in age. So how did that happen for you?
So interesting, when we had our 2 littles who are now 14, 15, we just figured, well, we were in diapers and bottles. We would foster diapers and bottles. Our youngest daughter, we got when she was 2, adopted her when she's 4. She's now 13. Okay. And then our 2 littlest, which are 10 and 11, we just got 2 years ago. And it was it was so bizarre because it was like we're going to sell our house. And in the middle of it, saw these pictures of these 2 little guys and just thought, I don't know, I think we're supposed to do this. And it would be 2 years ago in January.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, well, God bless you. Thanks for stepping up. And, being brave.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I wish more people were. I just,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, today we are going to be talking about a very heavy topic and something that
Hmm.
you're an expert on. And so I guess there's no good way to start than other just to start. So let's just lay the foundation a little bit and kind of the basics, and uh, tell our audience just in general what is considered sex trafficking. When people hear sex trafficking, they probably have a particular scenario in their head, but I would love to hear how you define it, and maybe like what you consider to be the most likely kinds of scenarios that you see.
Sure. When you're looking at the legal definition, it's that exchange of goods. I mean, it can be for a ring, it could be for food, but the exchange of goods for a sexual act. If they're over the age of 18, you also have to prove fraud, force, or coercion. If they're under the age of 18, we don't need fraud, force, or coercion. And it can look any different way. There was a gal that had described it. She said that she started out and she said, I was a hotel room hoe. And I was like,
Mm,
what does that mean? And she said, well, you're sold out of the room, which means they bring Johns to you. And
mm,
then talked about how in the casinos, then she was a carpet hoe. And that means she could walk into the casinos and around the casinos. They had broken her down enough that she could walk through the casinos without them fearing that she would take off. And then she could be a strip
mm,
hoe, which means she could work in the strip club or she could just walk outside. She could go with John's and then she would come back. I think so many people have that vision of taken, that
yes.
they're just that they're taken in, and that's not necessarily the case. Most of them, and the sad part is like when you're doing interviews, you think that in their mind there's going to be this, oh man, I can't believe you came and rescued me.
Rescue me,
I'm
right?
so happy to be here. Thank you. It's more like, why do you call me a victim? I'm not a victim. Even some girls have gone as far to say, one young lady I was talking with said, nobody put a gun to my head. Are you serious?
Yeah.
I left, I turned the tricks, I took the cash and I came back. There wasn't a gun to my head, but negated all of the stuff that went with that, like the psychological just brainwashing and that
Mm,
breaking down of her spirit to the point where, broken bones, broken fingers, broken face, all to the point where, yeah, now she comes right back.
Yeah.
yeah, I think just you sharing some of those details helps people understand. Oh, so that's what it's like. Because I think you're exactly right. I hear people like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing to go in and rescue these girls, mostly girls, not exclusively, and just think like, oh, they're so relieved that you came in and saved the day, when it's like I said, what's happened to them in their own hearts and minds has been distorted, and then of course there's a lot more to it afterwards. Even when a youth child is rescued, uh,
Definitely.
it's the aftermath. It's receiving them, and that long healing process that's far more difficult than the
Definitely.
rescuing, I assume. Yeah. So yeah, I if you can, as we continue to go, would love to hear some examples that, of course, whatever you feel is appropriate
Sure.
to share. So yeah.
Yeah, this is also interesting, Holly. So I grew up in North Dakota. I only moved away from North Dakota 8 years ago, and my husband and I were teaching a Sunday school class at our church, probably about 15 years ago now. And the book was kind of similar to Brian's, which we'll get into in a little bit, but it had different topics that were related to the title as orphan care. But one of them was sex trafficking, and we were sitting in this room in North Dakota, and all these people around us kind of shut out. And we noticed this. And my husband
Hmm.
started asking them questions, and they were saying they didn't think this was an issue in our area. And they're like, we
Mm,
live in small town North Dakota. This isn't a thing. Like, why are we even talking about this topic? Do you find that? Like, do you feel like people just don't even realize that
Yeah.
this is happening in our own backyards, in our own neighborhoods across the United States?
Absolutely. I think it goes back to people not wanting to believe it.
Mm,
Our task force is assigned everything that involves child pornography, child exploitation, child solicitation, and child sex trafficking. And even in those cases, there's people that are just, they do not want to believe that stuff happens in their community. And the idea of somebody selling another human being just is too much for people. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people sit. As soon as we have cases come forward and people start to see the prevalence of it, of, this individual was operating for a long time, or when we do our undercover operations and our team will put ads to sell kids or buy kids or pretend to be kids online, in
mm,
every, regardless of where we're at in the state, just the amount of people that respond to the ads. And people are like,
my,
are you serious? This is South Dakota. Absolutely. And I remember one case, it was during one of the operations, and it was a guy that wasn't here for the Sturgis motorcycle rally. He was just coming through town and had gone into one of the ads and wanted to purchase two young girls. And all I could think is, if you're coming to Rapid City, you've never been here before, and you go onto these sites that are there and you meet up with who you believe is a John, how many other small towns have you gone to? Small
mm,
cities, and been
mm,
successful about just driving someplace, because he worked on a cruise, so he was just going basically from site to site, and not a big issue
mm.
with just kind of coming into a town he's never been in and felt comfortable enough. And just that question of like, how many times have you done this before? In those small towns that you're talking about, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, places that you don't think, compared to New York, Chicago, LA, San Antonio.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, curious when, how, how do the victims, I mean, how does that even happen? How do these predators, um, find these, young, again, I'm going to keep saying women usually, but I know it's more than that, but how do the predators find their victims and how do they groom them? How's that all work?
Sure. I remember going to a training, and the FBI had sat down with this guy that was a pimp, a trafficker. And one of the questions that they asked was like, how do you select? And,
Mm-hmm.
how do you pick? And his response was very crass, but he said, I can make anybody a hoe. He's like, I can make your mom a hoe. He said, if you break down somebody, you rape them a bunch and in front of a bunch of people, you videotape it. He was basically talking about breaking the moral spirit within a person, to break
Wow.
them down to the point where they have nothing and they're willing to do anything because you're the only thing that they have left. And so he's just talking about this methodical, um, kind of this systematic
So
method of
evil.
breaking people down. But so he said, now, if you were to get somebody who has a tight family connection, right? They're loved, they're wanted, people are looking for them. That is a whole lot harder to break them down, because they
Okay.
know that they have family out there. They know they have people looking for them. They know that they are wanted and valued. Compare that to, and he said, a runaway girl whose
Hmm.
family's not even looking for her. She doesn't have food. She doesn't have a place to live. And you show up and you buy her McDonald's, you buy her something, you get her high, you give her cigarettes, you get her some clothes at Goodwill. And guess what? You just bought her loyalty. And then when he turns around and says something like, I can't pay for the hotel room tonight, could you help me out? I would never lose respect for you. I would never, ever lose respect for you. She's like, absolutely. And then what happens? They do it over and over. And then
Hmm.
again, there's this flip in the switch of, if my family found out that I did this, they wouldn't
Mm,
love me anymore. But here's this guy that I do this, and he still tells me he loves me afterwards.
mm.
And so, it's frustrating because people will say, why is it that when we bring girls in, and this is nationwide, when people are, victim advocates are talking, why are they so protective of these traffickers? Why are they so
Mm-mm.
protective? Because they consider them mentors, they consider them boyfriends, they consider them rescuers. Like, My family didn't come get me off the street, but this guy did. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like doing this stuff, but like he's the only guy I have and he
Mm.
takes care of me. So it's psychologically twisted. And then when you take that a step further, when it comes to foster care,
Mm-hmm.
there was a national speaker, and this was years ago, and she painted this picture of why it was so easy for foster kids to go straight into trafficking. And she said, she's like, look, when I was a foster kid, she said there was an exchange of money for my presence in someone's house. She said
Okay.
foster parents
Yes.
got paid to
Yes.
take me.
Yes.
She
Yes.
goes, no different. She goes, no different from an exchange of money for my presence in somebody's hotel room, backseat, or alley. She
Right.
said, when I was in foster care, I had a worker who told me what I could wear, where I was going to go to school, where I would live. She said,
Mm-hmm.
no different from having a pimp. And she said, and when I was in foster care, I didn't have permission to pick up the phone and call my mom or my siblings. She said I had to ask permission. She goes, no different from having a pimp. She said, you can't believe how similar trafficking felt to being in the foster care system. And so then you look and you're like, it makes perfect sense why
Yeah.
there's
No,
so
that.
many foster kids that end up in the trafficking world.
Yes.
Gosh, yeah. That what you just said, how similar it felt, and to from being foster care to being trafficked. That's man. That's
Yeah,
scary.
It is scary.
it
Yeah.
is.
You can see why it'd be so easy to be victimized and not even feel like it. Like this doesn't feel that different. I hate that. Gosh.
Yeah. And to wonder if anybody is looking out for them.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And if I can take it a step further, I think about my own kids. And so I do a lot of presentations on internet safety,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, if you were to boil all the water out of trafficking, it is the exploitation of the vulnerable. Okay. So I look at my own kids and the amount of supervision it takes to navigate technology with kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's two parts of it. Is one is when you have little boys that become addicted to porn when they're little,
Mm-hmm.
okay? They learn to objectify, right? You can't
Mm-hmm.
purchase a person like a pizza unless you see him as an object to be purchased first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a couple of weeks ago, I went through a 9-year-old's phone and he had a porn collection that would rival most adult men who have looked through their phone. And
Mm-hmm.
all I can think is, at this point in the game, people are actors and they are objects to be used. And then you have young girls. This was, I think, last year, my coworker, he was like, hey, Holly, check this out. He said, I have an 11-year-old girl's phone. She has 52 tabs open on her internet browser, and over 20 of those are porn sites. And both of us commented on how normal that is. Both boys and girls, their addiction and their fascination with porn. And so when you lay that out, when you have kids in the foster care system that are not supervised, that do not have people advocating, supervising, looking through their devices and telling them like, that's not what God intended, is for people to be treated as objects. Like you were never meant to be treated as an object. That's not how it's supposed to be. That's not what sex is. That's not what relationships look like. You think about how many times foster kids just in general are left out of that supervision. And so when they watch that kind of garbage and they don't have a good, solid family letting them know that's not how anybody should be treated, that seems normal. So when somebody treats them that way, they've been watching that for years. And then when you have these 18-year-olds that are getting busted in pornography or prostitution stings at 18, this seems normal.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think it's just that it's multifaceted. There's so many things that play into why our foster kids are so vulnerable when it comes to trafficking, exploitation, online solicitation.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
okay, I want to do a little bit of camping out here. Just, here you are, an expert in internet crimes, and you're a mom. What advice would you give our listeners who do have kids that are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old? Is like, what do you do, and what should parents do to say, hey, it's it's a dangerous world out there, and here's how to help protect your kids from getting into pornography?
I think the top thing I would say is that it's not about trusting your kids. It's about, do you trust the world with your kids? So when we look at pornography in general, people are like, I don't think my kids would go look for porn, right? Okay, but if you know how digital advertising works, you know that porn is looking for kids. Okay, so digital advertising, the way it works, it's going to go through these ad companies, find their way. They go through all of my stuff, right? All of my emails, all of my text messages, websites, histories, everything. And they look at me and they're like, she's married. She has 5 kids. She works law enforcement, right? Public service. And they basically give me ads that are meant to reflect my interests and desires. Okay. They also reflect what I can afford. So I never get ads for luxury cruises, expensive jewelry, yachts, mansions, because they know I can. I mean, they could advertise to me all day, but they know I can't afford it. And the only way these ad companies get paid is if I click on those, right? If I follow through. Okay. So follow me with this. They estimate that within a 99% degree accuracy, they can name every person's device on the planet. Like they can look at a device and say, I know that Brian owns this device. I know that Courtney owns this device. Okay. So if you go with me on this, then why is it that an 8-year-old, in which a tablet that belongs to an 8-year-old, nobody uses it but the 8-year-old. Why would an 8-year-old get pop-ups from a porn site? I mean, when you think about that, you're like, it seems accidental, but it's not. In fact, there's a saying in the field that if you get a kid clicking when you're young, you have a customer for life. Because again, it's just that understanding that if I can get little kids looking at images and videos, by the time they have money, disposable income, they will be, what they're looking is to produce a whale. Now, if I can take you back in time to the tobacco industry, what was interesting is the tobacco industry was accused of catering to kids, like they were marketing to kids. And they said, no, we're not. We're not marketing to kids. But then when they were subpoenaing emails, they found that the executives in the tobacco industry were referring to teenagers as the replacement smokers. In fact, they said it was easier to get kids to try smoking and be addicted at the age of 14 than it was to get them to try at 24. So they started marketing to kids. The pornography industry understands that if you can get a kid looking when they're young, they will constantly seek content, which pornography, escort, sex trafficking, all the same industry. So how do you get individuals to purchase other people or to be subscribers to porn stars, OnlyFans, all of those industries? You have to get them clicking when they're young because they have to look at other human beings as objects to be used for their entertainment. And so I tell parents all the time, if you don't understand what your kids are up against, it is a spiritual battlefield that your kid is wandering on, and they cannot handle it alone. You have, I mean, in our home, we use gab phones and bark phones.
Yeah. Okay. What is that? I honestly don't know what that is.
Those phones are factory created. Like our gab phone is Samsung, and there's no store. My kids can't go download Snapchat. In fact, they can't download any apps, and they can't go on the internet. So what's interesting is, so when my son gets a message from one of his buddies and it's a YouTube video, I can watch the YouTube video because I'll get a link that he was sent to something to go online. And then I'll show him the video if it's appropriate and say, hey, given that your digital footprint, right? College interviewers and job interviewers are going to see this. What do you think they would like you to see or say to this video? Right. And just teaching our kids and training them up. And so I think parents are so worried that their kids will be left behind. If I could share with you that one year we were selling a 13-year-old girl, and this guy that they're talking to makes this comment to who he believes is a pimp. And he makes a comment like, if you want to stay in the room and watch, you can. And we're like, man, who are we dealing with? He just asked the pimp to watch him have sex with a 13-year-old. And they do the arrest, the takedown. They bring him in for the interview. And when they asked him what his deal was with why did you want a pimp to watch you have sex with a 13-year-old? He starts talking about his porn addiction. And he's like, do you know how porn works? You watch it, and then like in a couple months, it gets boring. So you have to find something else, and that gets boring. And then you find something else, and that gets boring. You find something else. He said, try doing that since you were 13. He said, I take Viagra sometimes, and that doesn't even work. He said, I just figured if she was 13 and Pimp was watching and I took Viagra, it'd be just different enough. He was only 24 years old. Like as I'm watching the interview, all I could think is like, that could be any of our kids. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy or their kids. But what we're seeing is that our kids are starting so young, being overexposed, that to purchase another human being or to watch random people have sex is very normal. So trying to get parents to realize what their kids are up against, it's hard because a lot of parents, they're so about the convenience of cell phones that they're not willing to look at the dangerous side of them.
Yeah, I think what's hitting me is, everything you said is like, yeah, I know that happens, but I think the thing that's hitting me is just how calculated all of this is, and
Very.
how it's targeting really young kids,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, it's just it's so wickedly evil, and that it's calculated just seems to make it even that much worse. I loved how you said at the beginning there that this isn't about do you trust your kids, it's do you trust the people who are trying to reach your kids.
Yeah.
That's a great way. It's like, well, heck no, I don't.
No.
especially after talking to you for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and I tell parents, like, can you imagine somebody knocking on your door and saying, hey, can I go in your bedroom, your child's bedroom, and hang out with them for a little bit? Parents
Right.
would be calling 911,
right.
but they give
They
the
do
phone.
it every
Yeah.
day with their phone. Yeah.
Yeah, I use the example of this when I present, but I asked a mom, I was like, do me a favor, your young daughter's phone. I said, do me a favor, just add up 5 days. Her text messages, instant messages, chat messages, emails, and phone calls just for 5 days. And her response, she was like, it's 479. I was like, that's normal. I mean, that's, you think of emails and spam and all of the stuff. And one of the things that I tell parents is like, when I was 12 years old, if you wanted to talk to me and I was in a classroom, you had to physically be in the classroom. If my parents wanted to talk to me, they had to call the office, right? Call the office and do all of that and get me a note. When I was a 12-year-old girl and you wanted to talk to me and I was in my bedroom, you called my parents' home phone. And my parents answered and they decided who got to talk to me. Now, and I asked this mom, I said, can you imagine going and checking your mailbox on Friday and there's 479 envelopes or packages for your daughter? I said, would you let her open them? And she said, no. And I said, but you let her open them all day long.
Yeah.
And, I explained that when our team does the undercover operations, they do not take a 12-year-old girl and put her downtown in the city we're working and hope somebody believes she's a prostitute. They use the same applications that our kids are all on. And so when you think of what our kids are doing online and what they're exposed to, it's like there's individuals engaging with them. It's not about you trusting your kid at all.
Yeah.
It's about knowing that, you're not filtering any of those messages.
So how does this play out as they get a little bit older? So your oldest at home is 14, right? So I have 4 out of the house. They all turned 18, like their senior year of high school. So I had them for a little bit. Our rule at our house is no phone till they're 16. When they're 16, no social media till they're 18. But now we have a daughter in the house it's her senior year. She's 17. And like, she wants social media. And we've been saying not till 18. But then there's a part of me that's like, well, she's going to be out of her house when she turns 18. So do I want her to have something so I can kind of guide her along that instead of, oh, now you're out of the house and here you go. Like, what do you suggest as they get a little bit older? Like, is there some like letting go a little bit, or like what would your suggestion be?
Absolutely. So the older they get and that prefrontal cortex starts to develop, I would say that, our job is to train. And so even with those phones of saying, okay, I'm going to enable Snapchat on your Bark phone or your Gab phone, I'm going to go ahead and put it on there. But if I see changes in who you are as a person, I'm going to go ahead and take it off. And really, I tell my kids, you don't have to have any electronics, right? We don't even have to have a PlayStation. If my relationship with you is so important that if our relationship changes because of electronics, then we're going to get rid of them. So I tell them, you have to show me you're mature enough and you're honest enough to have those. So just having those conversations, like, let's just run through some scenarios. What if you didn't ask for it and boom, here's a naked picture of your friend on your phone? How are you going to handle that? Let's just talk about it. And so I don't think that no technology is best, but I also think that unsupervised, it is that training our kids up and saying, I believe that you're ready to take that next step, knowing that you're gonna falter, and that's okay, but at least you're with me. Unfortunately, you see some kids at 8 years old are given smartphones and there's no training, there's no
Yeah.
supervision.
Yeah. And I think the parents must just think my kid's just 8 years old. Like they're not,
Yeah.
they're not at risk, you know?
76% of all child sexual abuse material, otherwise known as child pornography, 76% is prepubescent children. Only 24% is adolescent. And so I tell parents, because I've had parents come to me and say, Holly, when my kids are kind of young, when they get a little bit older and they're teenagers, I want to come listen to one of your presentations on internet safety. And I just kind of look at them and think, are you kidding? 76% of the child abuse material out there, the pictures and videos of our prepubescent kids. And so that's the target. That's the engagement.
Yeah, I'm glad you're sharing that. Again, it's sick, but I can see lots of parents say exactly what that lady told you. Like they're 13. You're like, well, you're already 5 years behind. Gosh,
Yeah.
that's scary. Okay, so everything you shared obviously is relevant to every parent out there. But if we were to just talk about, okay, now let's go back to kids in foster care. So you have kids in foster care that are in your home. Um, they have shared some of what you shared of like even foster care feels a little bit like normalizing relationships that are built upon kind of transactional kinds of things. How would you advise a foster parent to say, here's what to do so it doesn't feel like that for that child, so that it doesn't make that feel normal?
Sure.
Do you understand my question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
One of the things that my husband and I have done in all of our placements, if possible, it is trying to get to know the birth family. I mean, just knowing that even if they can have no relationship until they're 18, I mean, some of those things of saying that your family is important to you, so they're important to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because they may have messed up doesn't mean that, you're a mess up or you're a screw up or you're an inconvenience. I've asked kids when they're old enough, how do you want me to refer to you when we're out in public? Because there's some kids that really I just want you to say your kids. And that's all the kids. They don't want any distinction to be made between foster kids, bio kids, adoptive kids. And I'm like, all right. And there's some that really are, I want people to know that I'm in foster care. Okay. But respecting those choices where you can respect them. In some cases, you really have to respect that privacy. And I've had to explain that to kids like, hey, we're probably not going to announce that. I'll probably just say all of my kids, just because it's, a different situation. But I think giving them as much freedom as you can to choose their clothing. We have our daughter, we still have contact with some of her biological family. And to her, that is huge. That is huge, that it's not a, done. You have to leave that part of your life behind.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some things that when you think of that transactional piece of it, it is you're here because, not because we want you here, not because you're just part of the family, but we've told kids, foster kids that come in, once you're part of our family, you're always part of our family, which means that it's not an 18 years old and you're out. It is, we've had kids come back to our house with their parents and do play dates after they were returned home. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell foster parents or people that are considering fostering, there will never be an experience like watching kids go back. Like when their parents are safe and they go back, and then to have the family come back into your home all together. Like it's, yeah. And I
Yeah.
think rooting for the child, rooting for their parents.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard, but I think when kids see that, when you speak positively about the people that they love,
Mm-hmm.
even when you're frustrated with them, that
Yeah.
it still shows them worth and value.
Yeah, I think, gosh, those two words right there, that if the kids still feel like my life is worth it, I'm still valuable, that that will help protect them from people who would want to uh, take advantage of them not feeling that way.
Yeah. What do you think about we were foster parents. We've been foster parents for 17 years, and right now we primarily foster teens. So we have a lot of these conversations about electronics and all this stuff. And we've taken the mindset. We tell them we are going to be honest with you. We are a very open family. We are honest. We're going to have these hard conversations. Um, what are your thoughts about maybe explaining to them in a healthy way a little bit about their vulnerability? Do you think that'd be helpful for them to understand kind of the realities behind electronics and stuff, in letting them know the vulnerability? And like a lot of the kids come into our home, like you had mentioned earlier, they've never had any sort of guidance on electronics, no rules,
Yes.
no looking into
Yes.
things, no. And so they do feel like we are being intrusive, and we are, they don't like the rules we have to set in place, but we tell them it's for
Yes.
the good, but where's like that line of, I'm not trying to say your past, your mom didn't care for you because she didn't do these things. She just didn't know, but we do know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, how do we have those conversations and make them feel heard and seen, but also not judged?
Sure. I think sometimes when you're approaching that conversation, it's like starting it out with, you know what, kiddo, if you had genes, it like just you're predisposed to diabetes. You know what? As a caring woman in your life, you know what I would do? I would sit down with you and say, these things you need to watch out for. Why? Because you're predisposed, right? There's just some factors that play into you have an increased chance of fill in the blank, right? You have an increased chance. One of the things that came out of the ACEs study, the abused childhood
Mm-hmm.
experience studies, is that sometimes just people knowing, like, really, I'm predisposed to that makes so much more sense. But it also gave people power to say, well, I can fight against that. Absolutely, you can. Absolutely, you can. And so I think being honest and just saying, hey, these are some of the things that you may face. These are some of the stuff that, might come your way simply because of your past. It's not a fatalistic, oh, you were in foster care, I guess you're going to get trafficked or you're going to be exploited. But there's some things that come with that. And so just trying to, exploring that just that sense, like, I want you to have the best life ever, the best life ever. And so I just want to set you up for success.
Good.
So, Holly, I think I hope I'm quoting you correctly, because this is something I heard that you said to somebody else, and this somebody else told me. That somebody else is Doris.
Okay.
Yeah, you're like, who in the world are you talking to? Is that you might have said, since virtually everybody who's listening to this isn't in law enforcement, if you want to make a difference in human trafficking, become a foster parent. Did you say that? Or
I did.
would you say this something like,
In fact,
okay,
I almost at every presentation that I do in the public, I will say, if you really want to make a difference, be a foster parent. Um, I think the stats show that over 60% of kids that are recovered from trafficking were in foster
yes,
care, had been in
yeah,
foster care. And so for a while, I chaired the Western South Dakota Human Trafficking Task Force. And I would have people approach me and just be like, "Oh, Holly, I want to get involved. My heart breaks. What can I do?" And they wanted to be the person on the white horse that goes in and
mm-hmm,
rescues.
mm-hmm,
But when you, and my challenge to them was like, are you willing to reach them before they're trafficked? Because that's
oh,
what
I
it
love
takes to
that.
be like,
Yes,
instead of waiting
it,
for the trauma to occur, why don't you just open your home and be a foster parent? And if you can't be a foster parent, be a wrap family. And if you can't, like, just do respite, everybody can do something. But
Yeah.
don't come
yes,
to me telling me that your heart breaks for trafficking when you're not willing to do at
willing
least
to
something.
step up in front of it. Yeah, yeah. I understand people. They romanticize this rescuing thing, and the idea of stepping in and intervening before they're being trafficked
Yes.
and receiving them into your home. It's not sexy. It's hard.
So hard.
And so, but yeah, if you're sincere and wanting to help these kids, then that is what it takes. And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and and everything you said totally makes sense as to why kids in foster care, who aren't being connected to a family with a lot of the advice that you've given, how they would be so vulnerable to these kind of, the fake family who is actually a predatory pimp.
Yeah.
Um,
If I could, you know, um, they talk about the safety net, and the best way I've heard it described is make a list of everybody that you could call if you broke down on the highway right now.
okay.
Okay, make a
Hmm.
list of all the people. Now add to this list people that if you needed $500 that they would give it to you without question. Like, I just need $500. Yep, sure, absolutely. I trust you. You can. Here it is. Um, and they said, think of people that you could call and you're like, hey, I just need help. I just need to vent. Would you be willing to listen to me? And basically what they put it, they're like, the longer the list is, the bigger your safety net is. Okay. That's that knowing if I fail and if I fall, something will catch me. Okay.
Hmm.
And they said, you're more likely to go out for sports. You're more likely to go to college. You're more likely to um, engage in healthy behaviors. You're also more likely to leave an abusive relationship,
Mm,
right? And I
mm,
remember talking to the head of probation, and he made this comment about, Holly, some of the individuals. So I've been at ICAC for 10 years, but I cut my teeth counseling offenders. That's how I cut my teeth, starting when I was 20. Yeah, I actually did. I did mental status exams on death row and segregation in a supermax security prison, and I did sex offender treatment in a max security prison. So, but I was doing counseling with probation and parole. And he said, these individuals are so resourceful. He said, I have a young gal that's being supervised, and she wants to go to a funeral across the state. And he said she has no money, so she offered sexual favors to her neighbor. And he said, did she get to the funeral? Yep, he fixed her car. But again, when you have no safety net, the world gets super small, really, really small. And
mm,
so when I encourage people, think about being a foster family in which you are the safety net and you
mm,
agree with this kiddo. Not only are we the safety net right now, we're going to be the safety net still when you're 30. When you call and you're like, man, I'm just struggling, I'm going to pick up the phone and answer it, because I know that the bigger safety net you have, every kid that comes into our house calls everybody grandma, auntie, and uncle. Like, I mean, it's just, we have this huge family that it's, once you're part of the family, you're always part of the family, because we believe that safety net feature. The more kids know that they have people fighting for them, the more secure they are in who they are. The more they're willing to stand up to somebody who tries to exploit them. Like, no, I
yeah.
got 30 people who have my back. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. That's so good. Um, yeah. That actually reminds me of there's a book by a counselor named Bruce Perry, and the book is called The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog, and it's about kids from mostly foster care. And he, towards the end of the book, talks about how 100 years ago or so, that every child had, I forget, it's something like had a certain amount of adult relationships, safe adult relationships. And like, so I don't have the numbers exactly right, but like every child had 7 adult relationships that were safe. And nowadays, if you go take a child and put them in daycare, that number's reversed. Like, oh, we have 1 adult for every 10 kids. And so his point was the more adult relationships a child has, the safer they are.
Think of how many kids age out of foster care with none.
With none. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
we
that breaks
had
my
a teenage
heart.
boy in our house last spring, and the first week he was with us, we're just driving around town, and he was having a really emotional day, and he just looked at me and he said, "Do you realize that I don't have one healthy adult relationship in my life, like somebody that I can trust from my past? Not one." And it just broke my heart. My kids were in the car, so it brought up, good conversation later with our kids as well. But he was with us not for that long period of time, but he was with us for long enough, a month in. We sat him down and we said, you made this comment in the car one day. Do you feel like you have at least one caring, healthy adult? And he kind of looked at us for a little while and he goes, "I actually can name 5 now." And it wasn't just us. I mean, thankfully he did mention us, but he also mentioned the people. Like, we do what you said, Holly. Like, we realize that we can't do this all alone as foster parents. And so we find people to mentor, people to come alongside, people to take them and go play basketball. And those relationships, if they are meaningful, make just as much of an impact as we do as foster parents when they feel like they've got more people in their court that they can trust.
Definitely.
I know adults, but none of them are healthy.
Yeah.
Well, Holly, I want to thank you for doing some incredibly important work, and incredibly dark area of life, that you're able to still have so much light and hope. And so grateful that there's people like you and people like you that do what you do. And I want to, again, highlight what you shared, is that to our listeners, if you want to make a difference in the area of human trafficking, and that is an area that tends to get way more awareness than compared to foster care, and that's an area that you care about, well, foster care is the place where you can step in and make a difference, and hopefully, yes, prevent a child. That's better than rescuing, is preventing a child from being trafficked. And my encouragement to you is, I would listen to this episode a few times just to keep hearing some new stuff each time that Holly shared. And and I have I wrote a book called Go Upstream, diving into the foster care to heal 10 social wounds, and this is one. And in that chapter, it does point out, just as Holly said, that the majority of rescued youth from trafficking had foster care experience. Now it's like, well, they were in foster care. It was like, yeah, but they were probably in a group home. They ran away. You can be a family for them, a for now family that gives them a trusting adult relationship. So again, Holly, thank you so much wisdom to share. And again, I cannot believe the job that you have. And thank God for people like you.
Yes. Must be
Thank you for having. Well, I appreciate you guys putting this together. This is awesome. And I hope people I hope they get motivated to not only foster, but to step up the protection on the kids in their home.
Yes. Thank you. That was said so well. Yep. Thank you.
Holly, do you have any online, like your classes that you put on? Are any of those recorded or anything that we could share with our listeners?
I don't have any recorded right now. We're looking to record one soon. We always say that, and then we get, slammed with cyber tips, and then we get crazy busy, and then we're not. But once I get it done, I will send it your way.
Awesome. We'll make sure we share that in our resources too. We provide resources, free resources, and links to people all the time, and would love to include that. So, yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks again.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, will you help us reach more people by subscribing, sharing the podcast with a friend, and leaving a 5-star review? If you've been inspired by what you've heard today and want to learn more of how you can make a difference for kids in foster care and the foster families where you live, visit americaskidsbelong.org. We depend on individual donors to fund our work. We'd be grateful if you would consider joining us as a monthly donor. Visit americaskidsbelong.org to make your tax-deductible donation. Thank you. Together, we can ensure a family for every child in foster care and a foster-friendly community to ensure every foster family feels loved and supported.